I've always kind of had this mindset that like I don't want to come to my back to my sport at the same level that I went out at, like I want to keep progressing and keep getting better. So I'll be coming back and then learning new things and working hard to like get back up to the top level that I want to be at. So that would kind of be like in my next like year and a half. But that was
Excellence is about standing, and excellence is a requirement for your dream to come true.
I would say my first memory in sport was probably around when I was 6 or 7. And it was a day in the freestyle club that I joined my older brother's group. And I always had the mindset growing up that anything my brother could do, I could do better. So him and his group were all hitting this medium jump. And I probably wasn't big enough to hit the medium jump at the age of 6, but I did it anyway. And I fully didn't have enough speed, came up short, nailed my face on the knuckle, got my first bleeding nose, but I was still like so happy that I did it and proud of myself. So say that's one of my first memories.
Is it really a memory, or is it more like what you've been told? Because it doesn't seem like the most joyful thing that can happen for a first time on the slopes.
I still no, it's a memory because it's just kind of pushing yourself and you're kind of just happy that you did it. So I remember being like definitely scared to do it, but since they all did, I was like, I have to, like, I can do it. And yeah, I ended up getting a bleeding nose, but I'd never had one before, so I thought it was kind of funny.
Nice. Were you competitive from a very young age, or was it just like your brother, or just brotherhood type of competition?
I would say I'm just a competitive person in general. Like, I grew up quite competitive, and then I started competing in my sport when I was like 8, just in
Okay.
provincial events. So, just kind of every aspect, I try and push myself. I would say more competitive with myself now than anyone else. But as a kid, I was just competitive against anyone and anything.
Nice. Were your parents maybe involved in some competitive sport, or was it just were you just born with that sort of mindset?
I think it was more just me. Like my parents did a bit of sports growing up. My dad skied, and that's how I kind of got into skiing, and our family all started. But just kind of how I was. I think having an older brother that teases you just makes you a little bit more tough.
Yeah, yeah, no, I can definitely attest to that. I have an older and a younger brother, and definitely, there's something that you cannot help but wanting to beat your your bigger relatives. So, no, I
Mhm.
completely relate to that. And yeah, so it was probably fun and a bit of competition from the beginning. But when did that change? Did you see very early on that you had some sort of a potential and talent in the sport, or yeah, how did that came about?
Yeah, so I started, I guess, competing when I was like 8 or 9, just in provincial events. And I always did quite well in those. And then I made the like BC provincial development team when I was 12. And then I started doing Canada events. And then when I was 14, I started doing North America events. And the first year that I did, we call them NORAMs. So that's for like North America events. I ended up like winning that whole series, and then I made the Canadian team when I was 15. So I kind of like I did know when I was at a young age that I was pretty decent at the sport, but definitely progressed more with time.
And what type of student were you? Because the moment you start focusing 100%, or let's say 80 or 85% of your time on the sport because you love it and you see you can become really great at it. How did you keep focusing on school? And was that something maybe your parents were supporting of, or more like pushing you towards going more to school?
Yeah, I feel like every student athlete has a different experience. Mine, I went to a normal high school. It did have a high performance program, so I was able to take some classes online, but I would still say I did like most in person and then some online, and then I would do some in the summer. I actually ended up graduating high school a year early. I just started taking classes a year up as soon as I entered high school and then realized I could finish early, so then I would not have to worry about school. So I did that. And then parents wise, I was always a student that wanted to do well on my own. So
Okay.
they didn't have to push me. It was just kind of me always being on top of it. I always wanted to get like really good grades and do well. I think that just goes with like competitive personality
Hmm.
traits. It's just like exceeding in everything. And then it was kind of funny. I would say in high school when there would be a big snow day and I would be home, my parents would be like, "Do you want to go skip school? We can go skiing." And I'm like, "I can't. I've already missed so much school this month. Like, I have to go today." And they're like, "Oh, you're being a buzzkill." So we're a little bit of the opposites where my parents were like ready to pull me out and go skiing. And I'm like, no, I have to go this time.
That's very funny. It's rare. Most of the athletes I've talked to are, yeah, I've had parents that were, yes, supportive, but at the same time that wanted them to just keep pushing for school in case something, something wrong happened. Um, do you recall of a specific point in time maybe where it became more than just well, your side gig or your side sports? At what point did tell yourself, oh, this is what I'm going to do, and this is going to be the next 10, 15, whatever, 20 years of my life that will be focused on this?
I think it was always a goal of mine, like growing up. I made a presentation when I was 10 about how I wanted to go to the Olympics. I think it was like a career
Yeah.
project that all kids did, and mine was go to the Olympics. And I had like a backup option, don't remember what that is. And then when
Nice.
I went into high school, I was kind of like, oh, I can make like the 2018 Olympics and be able to. So I made out like a whole checklist of like how I would make it there. I didn't end up making it, but that's not a big deal. It just kind of fueled my fire for the next ones. But it was kind of just always in my mind of like, this is my big goal. This is what I want to do, and just put the work in to get there.
And so that's when you kind of knew, in a sense, were there or are still there moment where you doubt about that choice, and wondering if that was the right call to make it when you were maybe 16, 18, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of always think about it. I thought about it more at like a younger age when I would see all my friends like have kind of like the normal high school experience, and then they graduate high school, and most of my friends went off to university and then started university and are graduating now. And
Hmm.
I'm obviously not doing that path. So it's kind of like, what could I have done if I like didn't ski? And you kind of have those like what ifs in your head, and you're kind of have a little bit of FOMO, like fear of missing out in certain situations when I was like away in high school and wanting to do other things. But I am happy with what I'm doing. And it was kind of just always like my love and passion. So I just kept working for it.
Nice. Um, Before we go a bit deeper, can you define exactly? So you're an aerial skier, I think, or acrobatic skier, which is very wide and broad. But yeah, can you define? I think you specialize in big air and slope style, which are a bit less famous than the traditional slalom or stuff on the slopes against the clock. Yeah, so can you define it slightly in like a minute or so what you exactly specialize in before we move on?
Yeah, no worries. I do slope style and big air skiing. You're right there. So mine has slope style is jumps and rails. So the rails are the metal bars that you'll either spin onto, spin off to, spin on them, and then jumps and slope style. There's usually three jumps, sometimes four, and then you're doing like different rotations of spins to the left, to the right, backwards, forwards, different rotations of flips, and then big air is just one jump, but you need to do two different tricks, two different directions on it. So it's usually your biggest tricks, and you're again spinning, flipping, off axis. It looks quite different than just like the traditional aerials. And the aerials is like a very steep jump, and they're flipping like basically usually just doing like straight over, versus mine's all about style and creativity and putting your own on it.
Nice. Um, Initially, what brought you or made you focus on these two specialties versus other, which are slightly more dangerous than the traditional skiing? Was there a special attraction to kind of fear and that, like you said, the style of it?
Hmm. Well, I joined the freestyle club when I was 5 or 6 at that point, and then you have to do like slope style, big air, moguls, and then you kind of do all around skiing. And then I just kind of had the most love for slope style and big air. Like I just had the most fun doing it. I liked the creativity that went in with it and how you can put in your own personal touch and style. So it's just kind of what I fell in love with.
Nice. It's funny because it even for someone who's competitive, who likes the idea of the risk and the thrill of doing stuff, I'm so amazed when I see people at 7 8 being like, yeah, that's what I want to do, like just jumping on skis. Even today I have a hard time just getting on skis, but yeah, it's amazing to see that you find your stuff that early and that you've been able to pursue it like that far,
Hmm.
even if it's just the beginning. So
Yeah.
you it's one very simple but at the same time very complicated question. As of today, you are, let's say, still at the beginning of your career. What would you consider your best and your worst moments since you turned pro or since you got to the international level?
Huh. Let me see. I would say my best moment or best season, it would have been back in like 2018, 19. That was kind of year I like really broke out on the international level. I ended up like doing the best at all the Big Air World Cups that year. So you get a crystal globe and you're kind of like the overall champion. So that was quite cool. And then my worst moment would be back in 2022 at the Olympics, the day
Mhm.
before I was supposed to compete, I tore my ACL.
So
So,
yeah, I saw that. So you were training to a couple days, or maybe the day before. So yeah, something happened. I think you have a you fall on the slope, and yeah, you get that super bad injury, which prevents you from actually competing. So yeah, what happens? And that's also, these are the tough and yeah, tough moments that people don't necessarily either want to talk about or like to talk about. But just before the recording a couple days ago, you told me that you were comfortable, and I think these are the very interesting things to be said out loud, because they're not necessarily the ones we can see and hear in the media. So yeah, when you see that kind of all your dreams and your work from the past 10 years kind of falling apart in 1 second, what goes through your mind and how do you recover from that, in a sense?
it was definitely like probably the most heartbreaking moment in my life for sure. And I often don't speak about it because I don't want to speak negative about going to Olympics. You know, like I am
Mhm.
happy that I made it there, but that was something I worked like my whole life for, my whole goal, like something I dreamed about. And then finally getting there was so amazing. Got to be a part of opening ceremonies. I had 3 training days before my first event, and the first two went great. And then it was on the last training day. You're just like working to get your tricks. And then I just had a fall and like felt something funny, and then all of a sudden I was surrounded by like 7 healthcare people. They're like, "Are you okay?" And then couldn't get up, couldn't really move my leg. You kind of realize you're not okay. And then go get checked out, go to like Team Canada House. I had to go get an MRI, but that whole time I was still trying to be optimistic. I honestly never even had the thought cross my mind that I would get hurt at the Olympics. I had
Mhm.
kind of a pretty bad track record going into the Olympics with other injuries, and even getting there was just like, don't get hurt before the games, Elena. And I was always like, oh, that won't happen. Or it didn't happen. So when I got to the games, it wasn't really a big worry. And then it happened, obviously, and I got like the call that night about my MRI results with like torn ACL, torn meniscus, bone bruise, and you kind of know with that injury you're not able to compete. And I like at that point I was quite sad. I definitely cried quite a lot, and then it took me quite some time to kind of pick myself back up. I don't know if I really realized how much it was a loss for me, just working so hard to get somewhere and then not being able to do what you want to do there for sure was quite tough. And then kind of like getting motivation back and wanting to do it again is a little hard to find. But I think just once I started the rehab process with my knee and getting surgery, I was just taking it like day by day, week by week. And then I had missed skiing so much and I have such a like strong love for it that I knew like I wanted to come back and then like make my way back and kind of work to get there. But it was definitely a hard time for me after that happened and like a lot of mental work to do. I work with a sports psychologist and I still do now.
Mhm. And how do you in the fact you said a sports psychologist, so it's not necessarily someone that went through the same struggle as you've been through or as you're going through. So what is it that you have to work on, in a sense? Is just, taking the step back and realizing that at the end of the day it's quote unquote only the sport or your job. Yeah, what is it that how do you approach that rehab, both like physically and most importantly mentally?
Mentally, it's kind of just like talking about it and working through it because it is stuff that happens and it affects you in ways that you don't necessarily know it's going to. And there's kind of like, even anytime now I talk about getting hurt at the Olympics, I almost start to cry. Like it
Mhm.
still breaks my heart for sure. So I'm still working on it and I still see a sports psychologist now to kind of help me work past things and be able to see stuff in a positive light. And then physically it almost seems a bit easier because you're just following a program. Like I have a amazing return to sport person that I work with here in Calgary, and I just kind of follow that, do a ton of testing, and then just stay on top of it. Where
Mhm.
I'm like pretty consistently just in the gym. I usually go about like 6 days a week to try and stay strong, and then
Eh,
follow. I was
no,
just gonna say I worked with a nutritionist as well, so like staying on top of my nutrition because that's such an important part.
so it seems that the when we see someone getting an injury that takes that person away from the sport for let's say 6 or 9 months, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, it must be tough because you have to rehabilitate, you have to reuse your leg or your arm or whatever it might be. But it seems like the real tough part is the mental aspect of accepting that, well, this happened and you have another X month of pretty much not doing anything that you thought you would be doing. um, do you think, and I think I mean, I know you're currently injured and also you're going through another rehab period. Do you think and you feel you're going to get stronger out of it, whether it be again physically because you know your body better, and most importantly mentally because you've been through a very low point, so anything that happens next will be in any case higher and more joyful.
Um, I have like multiple answers for the
Yeah,
question to lead
go
into.
ahead.
I'll start with like one of the things that's also quite tough during injury is being away from your sport. Like skiing is something that provides me like the most amount of happiness and joy and a
Mhm.
thrill that I can't really find anywhere else. So you're kind of taking away the biggest main thing going on in your life that you can't do anymore. So you have to kind of find time to do other things. And then also just before a season, I always set so many goals and I like make plans. And then when something like this happens and injuries, it just kind of erupts all those plans. And you kind of gotta to have a whole new set of goals for a year and switch all of your plans. And then looking at it like coming to injury process and being like, oh, I'll come back stronger, better. I mean, I did think the same thing after tearing my ACL in 2022. I was like, oh, like I'll come back and I'll be stronger, both physically and mentally. That's what I wanted to be. And I was like, I'm definitely like after when I started skiing again, I was like the strongest point I'd been in my life. And then I did feel like I'd kind of worked through a lot of things mentally. But then once I like started skiing again, I pretty much I tore my ACL February 2022. I had surgery end of March, and then I got back on snow lightly the next like January, February, and then spent all summer training. And then November last year, I hurt my ankle, and then January, I tore my ACL again on my other knee. So even though I felt like I was at the strongest point I've ever been at, I still had like the one of the worst injuries you can have um, happen again. So
Go.
it's tough to now like I'm gonna go through this other whole process and I want to come back again stronger and physically and mentally, but it's hard for me to keep my hopes up at all points now, and I just continuously keep having things like this happen.
Yeah, and in that case, is that the pure passion and that very early competitiveness that you had, is that that one thing that keeps driving you because you have maybe 2026 Olympics in mind and other goals? Or yeah, what keeps you motivated because you have something that makes you wake up in the morning, and even if it's a tough day, just keep going, like I said, to the gym and talk to the therapist and do all these things. So yeah, what are those stuff that are putting you up?
hmm There's definitely lows that come with being in my sport, and I've definitely felt those, but it also has a ton of highs and so much love, and it's really just what I want to do. And you have to put in work for what you want to do. Nothing's going to come easily in life. And that's kind of like every day I'm doing the work that I can do now to get back on snow. And that's just like little things with my knee rehab at the moment. But I would just say my like motivation to keep doing it is there's still like so much I want to do on snow. Like I want to go to the next games in 2026 and kind of get my redemption. And then even more than just like the idea of competing somewhere, it's just kind of like the love that I have for the sport and still like want to do it and get back to it. And I already miss it.
Mhm. Yeah, so there's one question that's I sometimes ask at the very end of the podcast, and recently someone basically asked me that question in the middle of the interview, and I thought it gave so much perspective. Um, the question is, if you were able to have, let's say, 5 minutes and sit with 7 or 8 year old Elena when you were doing that first jump, where you are today when you're at a low point, and you were able to hear her and hear her expectations for the future and what she thinks or hoped she could do, um, even in the low moments, what would you think she would feel about what you've accomplished so far? And is that something that kind of brings you up at times, just to realize that even if there are lots of lows, you've already achieved a bunch of stuff that 7 8 year old would be super proud of?
Yeah. I mean, I never really think about it like that. I don't think about like little me that much, but I still think little me would be pretty impressed of where I am today. Like I've worked hard to get to where I am. I did make Olympics. I've done well at events. I've picked myself up after each injury. I feel like if you were to tell little me all the stuff that I've had to work through, they'd be like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And then to like get back to the point of where I am, I think little me would be like, "I'm excited to get older and be you."
Yeah, so that's a good one. And now I like to ask in the middle at the beginning. It reminds me also for me when stuff happened with the business and it's not a good day. I'm like, damn, 10 years ago, if I could talk to whatever 20 or even 20-year-old Dio, I'll be like, it's pretty decent what you've done. So don't be too pissed about what's happening today. Just it's gonna get better, and it's already pretty damn good. So anyway, yeah. Um, looking forward, I know you've told me it's still pretty tough to just recover from that second torn ACL. But yeah, what is it that you're looking to achieve, and what would you consider success in the next 24 months, let's say, or yeah, 24 months?
So
And has
next two
that changed also
years.
in the past? And as the definition of success changed for you in the past years?
I would say so. I think you used to think of success a lot like result based.
Yep.
Um, if it's like podiums and so on. And now I have a lot more successes, I think, just on my own skiing. So if it's learning a new trick I set as a goal or like doing a comp run that I wanted to do, I would be super proud of. Um, the next 24 months. I'm happy you extended 24 months because my psychologist actually asked me, she's like, well, do you have any like goals in this upcoming year? And I kind of went silent. It's hard when I'd spent like because the injury is still pretty fresh and I'd spent like most of the time thinking about the season in a certain way and thinking about the summer and then next year in a certain way. And I had like a ton of goals and things I want to accomplish. It's like next year will be my first year for Olympic qualifying. And I was like, can train well over the summer, learn all the stuff I want, compete well next year, and then hopefully be able to qualify then and not have to worry that you're going Olympics. But now, like, I don't know when I'll kind of be back on snow and fully competing. It'll take probably over a year because this is my fourth knee surgery. So I kind of like right now, my mind is just like getting back and strong, kind of like as quick as I can, but also it does take time. So, like, keeping working at it. And then once I'm on snow, it's getting the tricks back. And I've always kind of had this mindset that, like, I don't want to come to my back to my sport at the same level that I went out at, like, I want to keep progressing and keep getting better. So, I'll be coming back and then learning new things and working hard to like get back up to the top level that I want to be at. So that would kind of be like in my next like year and a half. But then when you say 2 years, then I want to be like back competing and back like doing kind of the new tricks that I set my mind to, and then making the games in 2026.
Hmm.
And
And
then I
that's
wouldn't
exactly
say, sorry.
past 24, and I looked at the at my clock with the date. I was like, would it work 24 months for the next Olympics? Yes, it does. So that was kind of the idea. Yeah, sorry, you were not finished.
But I wouldn't say I don't really set result based goals, especially since my sport is just like it's a judge sport. It kind of goes off style and creativity. Like it's so out of my hands, the scoring wise. But like I just want to be skiing at a level that I'm happy with and proud to be competing at, and like doing kind of like new tricks. Or if I set a goal for a certain run, like I want to reach that at that point. But the whole skiing part is still hard to think about at the moment because it's so far away that it's hard to set goals when I'm like such a distance from there. But I know like those would be my like rough kind of like
Mhm.
loose goals that aren't like it has to be this, and this. It's just like something I think I can achieve.
Yeah. And like you said, these are like 2 years ahead. So this is helpful to help you keep working and keep waking up in the morning and working hard. But it's at the end of each day when you go to sleep, you have to, I mean, that's what I do. And I'm curious to see how you do that is you reflect on that one day and there's little successes every single day. So having that 24 month objective is one thing, but on a daily basis, how is your yeah, I would say, what's your process, and how do you make sure that every single day has a little win here and there, and how do you track them, and yeah, how do you set them, how do you make sure you reach them?
Feel like it's very different being like in sport versus out of sport, like my mindset and with that. But like out of sport, when I'm injured and coming back in recovery right now, I more go like a week by week, especially since I'm 3 weeks post op right now. Like there's only so much I can do. So like right now I can't walk. I'm in crutches. I can't like get dressed without sitting down. I can't drive. I really can't do too much. My whole job is kind of just to like rest and do some of my exercises that I have right now. So each week it's just like, did I progress? Do I have a little bit more movement that I did last week? Does it hurt a little bit less? And that's kind of what I'm looking at, like those little wins. And then I think it's super important during injuries, especially like honestly for anyone, athletes, it's just you need to have other things going on because like my normal whole life is skiing, and when that's taken away, it's like what do you have to look forward to? What's going to give you those little accomplishments? What's going to provide you with other piece of happiness or things to look forward to? So right now my hobby is playing the piano. I got one last week and just started learning how to play. And then I'm a big Sudoku person, and I do a little bit of online school as well. So kind of just work away at all those things with my free time where I can sit. And then in the summer, I love to golf. So that's I'll be able to play that again and can kind of progress and get those like little wins and all those other things. And then when I'm skiing, I usually kind of set some more like daily intentions of what I want to work on. So if it's like a day training, it's like this is the trick that I want to work on. And then hopefully can and can progress. And then that night you kind of reflect, you're like, did it go the way that I wanted? Did it not? And then I don't really like to stay like too negative on myself when things don't completely go my way one day. Like sometimes things just aren't happening, and to just get into like a really bad mindset, I don't think is ever helpful, and just like be
Mhm.
super negative on yourself. So it's just what can I improve on in the future from this? What did I still learn from today, whether it be good or bad, and what can I take forth to work on tomorrow? So,
Nice. So yeah, it seems like you keep busy even if you, like you said, cannot stand these days. um
mhm.
and that aligns a bit with the next question I had in mind. It's how do you you're super young, but you've had tough times. So I'm sure you've at some point reflected on what will be next once skiing will be over. You said you do a lot of online school and stuff like that. So yeah, what do you think when you cannot compete anymore? Decide that it's enough for you. What is it that will come next, and is that something that you start thinking about and kind of working on like now?
I think it's kind of always in the back of any athlete's mind a little bit. You're like, what am I gonna do next?
Yeah.
But I have a few ideas of what I want to do. I'm in school. I'm in like a management program that specializes in marketing. So it might be something in marketing. I also kind of want to be a real estate agent maybe, but I'm not like too set in stone. Like I still want to ski for the next few years. Like I want to do the next games, and after that point, I think I'm gonna like reevaluate and make sure I still have the same like love and passion for the sport. 'Cause if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to progress the way that you want to. And then if I do, like do a few more years, and if I don't, maybe like choose to move on in my life and see what I want to do and figure it
Mhm.
out. But right now I'm kind of just like trying a few different things and seeing if I like them, seeing if I don't, and then can kind of fully decide at that point. I'm not too worried about it yet.
Yeah, you didn't mention that you would be a pianist. Is it out of the question completely, or is it adding into principles? No,
I
it
don't think
would
I'll
enough.
be a pianist. It's just kind of like a hobby to have for fun. It
Yeah.
also my grandma's a piano teacher, so we are gonna do like weekly Zoom lessons, and it's just another way for her and I to stay in touch and talk every week, and then just kind of something fun to learn.
Yeah, but you're competitive, so you have to be competitive. So necessarily at some point you'll have that. Can I do it? Can I not? Can I do it? Can I not? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've talked a lot about the struggles and the low points that you've been through in your career. Have you or are you thinking of maybe helping other athletes, younger athletes, in the future that are going through those periods once you've gone through a lot of them and found your way out of them, your way out? Sorry.
I would try to a little bit. Like I do on my Instagram, I do take more of an approach when I post about injuries of not being so, I would say, positive. Like I'm a little bit more real. I think a lot of athletes after injuries sometimes post and they're like, "Oh, like I tore my ACL, had surgery, but I'll be back." Like can't
Yeah.
wait to learn from this experience. But that is not how you feel when it happens. Like it's
Hmm.
devastating and it's horrible and you're sad and it sucks. And I kind of like to post about that a little bit more. I did after the Olympics with injuries, and then I got like quite depressed, obviously, like after that happened, and I shared a little bit about that as well online because I don't think a lot of people realize how much of a mental toll it takes on athletes being injured
Hmm.
and kind of like the mental side of it. So I like to share like on my online presence a little bit about more my emotions of how I feel towards injury. And then I do have kind of quite a few people who will reach out sometimes and ask, and then I do try and like get back to a few people about it if they have questions or like kind of share my experience. And then younger athlete wise, when I used to be home in Vernon, I would coach back at my home club at Silver Star and coach the kids sometimes, and then I love seeing them progress. I actually really like ski coaching. I think it can be quite fun and rewarding. And then athletes that I've like worked with, I'm always open to talk about kind of like the mental side with injuries and help in any way that I can.
Nice. Very cool. Um, if I told you that I'm writing a book on your story, your biography, and you could only choose the title, what would this title be?
Hopefully it'll be
Life
like
life story. Yeah.
like a unforgettable comeback. It's like the story isn't ending. Like we're hoping that after this like really bad spear of like 6 years I've had with injury that I come back and do like really well. So we're that's what I would say. It'll be like unbelievable comeback after like all that I've been through for it to end up doing so well after.
Perfect. So I'm just gonna take a note of that because if I actually write your book, at least I'll have the title. um, yeah, no, I was just wondering where people can follow you. Are you active on social media? You seem to be. So where one listen to you, follow you, see you, watch you, everything.
I am. It's just my name on Instagram, Elena.Gaskell. And then I think my TikTok is also Elena Gaskell, and then same with LinkedIn. And then I'm gonna try like especially through this ACL recovery process, like kind of post like month to month at least, just like how much you can do in the month. Because I forgot like last time I got my ACL done, I think I just blocked out the first 3 months of my life when I did that because it was not ideal.
Hmm.
But just like post, and people can see if they're also going through the rehab, like kind of check in. They're like, oh, this is where she was at, this how much she's moving, and you can kind of get like a realistic idea from someone else of what's going on, and then hopefully it'll be like an exciting comeback.
Nice. Very cool. So you said Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Perfect. Um, if you had one person in mind, one Canadian athlete that you think has been through highs and lows just like you, and that would be interesting to hear on the podcast, who would that person be?
I think my lovely teammate, her name's Megan Oldham. She's a skier. We do the same thing, but we kind of have quite different stories about how we got into sport, where we're at now, and just kind of our own different highs and lows points as well.
Nice.
So same sport athletes, but like kind of completely different stories.
Where is she based out of?
She is from Parry Sound, Ontario.
Okay, sweet. So I'll try to reach out to her then. Um,
Yeah.
the last one is more personal. I'm building. It's not behind me right now, but I showed it to you before we started recording. I'm building that wall of fame at my office. So I'd like to know if you have any gear from your career, anything that you could, put a quick signature on and send over my way.
Of course. I will find an old bib for you somewhere that I can sign and send away for you.
Sweet, wonderful, and I'll make sure to send you a nice picture to show you where it ends on that wall. Awesome.
Lovely.
What last word can we what can we wish you in the next next month and everything?
I think healing vibes can be sent to me at the moment because
Sweet.
I am in recovery. We can wish for me to be walking soon. That would be exciting for me, but just I think healing vibes sent are always good. Like I always appreciate everyone's like kind words that have reached out since this past injury as well. Like it's nice to feel supported and surrounded that people are rooting for you.
Nice. So all we wish you all an unbelievable comeback, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Wonderful. Thank
that's what I
you,
want to
Elena. It was great talking to you. Super interesting to see people being so open about the struggles and everything. So I'm sure it's gonna inspire more people.
say. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers.